For more of this kind of content, you can subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. The rain had turned black again. It slid off the neon signs like oil, pooled in the broken pavement like spilled ink, and fell in heavy sheets onto the steel bones of New York City, now more shadow than skyline. Ethan crosswalked with his hands in his coat pockets, collar raised against the acidic drizzle. The old scars on his arms itched in the wet, a reminder of battles fought on planets whose names he tried to forget. He had chosen this part of the city for a reason, forgotten by law, hidden from eyes. Here, no one asked questions. And that was exactly how he liked it. Until tonight. A sound stopped him mid-step. Not a voice. Not a cry. Something softer. A breath. He turned toward the alley between two collapsed buildings, where flickering light barely reached. There, lying crumpled in the shadows, was a figure barely visible, barely moving. He approached cautiously, one hand instinctively drifting toward the knife tucked at his back. As he stepped closer, the shape became a person. A woman. Or something that looked like one. She was trembling. Her skin shimmered like liquid metal under the rain, faintly reflective. Not gray. Not silver. Something in between. Her hair was soaked and tangled, clinging to her face. And her eyes, when they fluttered open, glowed faintly purple. Ethereal. Unmistakably not human. She tried to speak but coughed instead, blood mixing with rain on her lips. Her body was covered in thin lacerations, her clothing torn as though she had escaped something violent. Chains? Restraints? Ethan couldn't be sure. He knelt beside her. "Hey, you're hurt. Can you understand me?" The girl stared at him, unblinking. Her pupils expanded and contracted rapidly, like a creature calibrating to a new environment. "I won't hurt you," Ethan said, lowering his voice. "But you can't stay out here. It's not safe." She shivered violently. "My name's Ethan," he added. "What's yours?" A pause. Then she whispered, voice hoarse, syllables thick with an accent not of this world. "Ariya." She flinched when he moved his hand. Reflexive. Trained. He recognized the signs. This wasn't just a refugee. She'd been hunted. He looked over his shoulder. No footsteps. No drones. Yet. Still, standing here made them both targets. With a quiet curse, he pulled off his coat and wrapped it around her. She recoiled, her whole body tightening like a coil, but didn't scream. "I need to lift you," he said. "You're freezing. You won't survive another hour in this rain." It took a moment before she nodded. Barely. He carried her through the winding alleys, head down, avoiding cameras and street patrols. The weight of her was feather-light, but every step felt like he was carrying something sacred and fragile. His apartment was a second-story unit above a defunct hardware shop. A rusted door. A retinal scanner that still worked. Inside, it smelled of dust, solder, and old memories. He laid her on the couch, careful not to touch bare skin. She hissed as she curled inward, arms folded protectively around herself. The room was dim, lit only by amber wall panels and the hum of old tech. Ethan fetched the medkit. I need to clean your wounds. Ariya opened one eye, watching him. She didn't respond, but didn't resist either. He knelt again, beginning with her arms. Thin welts. Burns. Someone had used electric restraints. He had seen this before in off-world prisons where treaties meant nothing. As he worked, she suddenly whispered something. Not in English. The words were fluid, melodic, ancient. A dead dialect, maybe. He recognized a few of the root forms he had learned over 24 languages during service, many alien. He replied in one he hoped she understood. Her eyes widened. She responded. They spoke haltingly, patching gaps in syntax, but it was enough. She told him she had escaped. That she didn't know where she was. That she had followed a beacon, hoping it led to sanctuary. She had no idea Earth was already dying inside. When he finished, he offered her water and a nutrient bar. She sniffed both cautiously, then ate with trembling fingers. The rain outside slowed to a drizzle, tapping gently against the glass. Ariya glanced at him as she finished eating. Her eyes lingered on the scars across his knuckles. Then, to his face. Why, help me, she asked in broken English. He leaned back in a chair. Because someone should. She stared for a long time, then nodded slowly. The tension in her shoulders eased. Not trust, not yet. But something close. A silence settled between them, broken only by the soft hum of neon lights beyond the window. Outside, in the rain-slick streets, a black vehicle rolled slowly by. A camera mounted on its roof paused, scanning the alley where Ethan had found her. Then it moved on. Inside, the girl who should not have been alive drifted into uneasy sleep. And Ethan Cross, who had promised never to get involved again, stared at her fragile frame, and knew deep down, he already was. Ethan Cross sat in the glow of the kitchen's dim light, stirring lukewarm coffee he wouldn't drink. He kept glancing over his shoulder, toward the couch where Ariya lay asleep under a thermal blanket. The apartment was silent except for the occasional hum of old circuitry and the faint whistle of the wind sliding through cracks in the building. It had been 3 days since he found her. 3 days of soft-spoken exchanges and nervous silences. She hadn't tried to run. But she hadn't relaxed either. This morning, though, something shifted. When he passed her a cup of warm broth, she had taken it without flinching. When he handed her a folded sweater, she didn't recoil. Progress? If only a little. Ethan moved carefully, giving her space. She was like a wounded animal. Too much kindness too fast could be as dangerous as cruelty. She sat now with her legs drawn up, watching the window as if trying to decipher the meaning of every light that blinked outside. Her skin, though alien, looked a bit less pale now. The cuts were healing, and her breathing was steadier. Ethan approached slowly, offering her a small device no bigger than a matchbox. This is a translator. I reprogrammed it for off-world dialects. Might help us communicate better. Ariya took it gingerly, studied it, then clipped it behind her ear. She blinked, a small hum echoing as the device synced. Better? He asked. She nodded. Yes. Thank you. Her voice was smoother, more confident now, layered with faint metallic resonance from the device. They talked, stumbling at first, but then words began to flow, bits and pieces, questions, and short replies. Ethan learned her ship had followed a signal from a dying colony, a beacon pulsing from Earth. She thought she would find allies here. She found chains instead. She didn't say who had captured her. Not yet. But her eyes dimmed when he asked, and that was answer enough. I used to be a soldier, Ethan said that night, leaning against the window frame as distant sirens wailed. Fought in systems people back on Earth still don't know exist. I lost friends. Lost pieces of myself too. Came back broken. So I disappeared. Figured the world wouldn't miss one more ghost. Ariya was sitting cross-legged on the couch, a worn blanket draped around her shoulders. Her gaze softened. You are not a ghost, she said, her voice still awkward in cadence, but steady. Ethan smiled faintly. You don't know me? She looked at him, unwavering. I know you saved me. The night stretched on in soft silence. They sat together, not speaking, as light from the street danced across the walls. Ariya occasionally whispered things in her own tongue, mostly to herself. Ethan listened without interrupting. Some words needed no translation. Later, on the rooftop, they watched the stars, or what was left of them, behind Earth's hazy sky. The city glowed beneath them, a maze of wrought and steel. Where I'm from, Ariya said, pointing upward, stars are blue. Cold, like snowlight. And the sky never stops singing. Sounds better than here? She nodded. It was. Until fire came. Machines burned the ground. My people ran. We scattered. Our voices were lost. I followed the last song here. Ethan looked at her hand resting on the railing beside his. Slowly, without a word, he reached over, resting his hand gently atop hers. For a second, she tensed. Then, she didn't pull away. The moment lingered like held breath. The sounds of the city faded beneath them. There was only warmth, skin against skin, and a silence that felt like the beginning of something fragile. Neither of them noticed the red sensor blinking silently across the street, embedded in the eye of a weather drone. It turned, focused, and watched. Somewhere far below, a signal was sent. And somewhere, someone smiled. In the heart of the city's underworld, beneath towers of neon and rust, Revik Morello leaned back in a throne-like chair carved from repurposed machine parts. The room around him was alive with movement holograms flickering in the air, monitors shifting between feeds of security footage, and distant sounds of drilling echoing through the underground. Revik watched everything, always. He was reviewing the footage from the lower districts, idly sipping dark liquor from a glass shaped like a cracked skull. Most of it bored him: junkies, petty thugs, failed deals. But then a still frame froze on screen. His drink paused halfway to his mouth. The girl. She was on a rooftop, standing next to a man he didn't recognize. Skin like brushed silver, eyes glowing faint lavender, hair like spilled starlight. Not human. Not entirely. He leaned forward. Zoom, he ordered. The AI obeyed. Closer. Her features sharpened on the screen. Ethereal. fragile, priceless. He smiled. A slow, cold, possessive smile. Ariya, the AI intoned, pulling data from surface-level scans. No registry. Genetic markers indicate non-terrestrial origin. Unknown classification. Revik didn't care what she was. He cared what she wasn't. She's not from here, he murmured. She's mine now. He snapped his fingers. Get Vask. Moments later, a tall brute of a man entered, body armored with embedded cybernetics, face half machine. Track her. Bring her in. No damage. She's a collector's piece. Vask nodded and vanished into the shadows. Back in the upper district, Ethan was making tea. The apartment felt warmer lately. Ariya sat near the window, reading data from an old tablet he'd salvaged. They had found rhythm, if not routine. There's a museum in Sector 12, Ethan said, pouring hot water. Full of pre-collapse books. We could go there, if you want. Ariya looked up, eyes bright. Books, of Earth. Some, he said. Others stolen from worlds nobody remembers. She smiled. Then the power flickered. It was brief. A hiccup. But Ethan noticed. So did Ariya. He put down the kettle. Stay here, he said. He moved to the control panel beside the door, checking feeds. The street cams were down. He flipped the backup array. Static. That's when the first window shattered. Explosive entry. Precision breach. Ethan dropped instantly, grabbing the emergency pistol taped beneath the table. Ariya screamed, but not from fear, from recognition. The men who entered weren't local thugs. They were armored, masked, disciplined. Revik's hunters. Ethan fired twice, 2 down. But there were more. They swarmed like a net, one tossing a flash bomb into the center of the room. Light and sound tore through the space. Ethan lunged forward, trying to reach Ariya, but something slammed into his side. Hard. He hit the ground, disoriented. Through the blur, he saw Ariya being pulled, kicking, crying out in her language. A stun baton cracked against her back. She fell silent. Then darkness. When Ethan awoke, the world was sideways. The couch was overturned, the windows blown open, the smell of ozone and blood thick in the air. His head pounded. His mouth tasted copper. He forced himself up. The apartment was destroyed. The translator device lay cracked on the floor. The blanket she had wrapped around her shoulders was scorched and crumpled in the corner. She was gone. Rage hit him slowly, like a wave of acid. Not sudden, not sharp, but consuming. A heat beneath the skin. A pulse behind the eyes. He stumbled to the wall, opened the locked cabinet he had promised never to touch again. Inside, a case. Black steel. Fingerprint locked. It hissed open. And the past came back with a vengeance. Rain fell harder than it had in weeks, thick drops pounding the cracked streets of the lower sectors as Ethan Cross moved like a man possessed. His coat clung to him like a second skin, drenched, heavy, forgotten. He didn't feel the cold. He didn't feel anything. Only the rage. Only the need to find her. His fingers flew across the surface of a stolen drone uplink tablet, hacking into local feeds, replaying grainy footage in fast forward. Block by block, corner by corner. The more he dug, the more the world around him dissolved into noise and static. Then he found it. Frame 3227. A rooftop. Sector 9. A girl sitting alone near the edge, hair matted and silver under the rain. Her head bowed, her posture motionless. Ariya. Ethan's heart stuttered. He zoomed in until the resolution broke into blur, but it was her. He pinged the coordinates and bolded. The building was old, industrial, long abandoned. He kicked through a rusted service door, climbing 4 flights of corroded stairs 2 at a time. His breath ragged, soaked to the bone, he reached the rooftop. There she was. She sat at the edge of the rooftop like a statue forgotten by time, her arms wrapped around her knees. Torn fabric clung to her slender frame, her once glowing skin dull, covered in grime and bruises. She didn't look up as he approached. Ariya, he said softly, voice nearly breaking. I'm here. I found you. Still, she didn't move. He stepped closer, cautiously, not wanting to startle her. Every instinct screamed something was wrong. She spoke then. Barely a whisper. I thought it would feel like freedom. Escaping them. But it doesn't. Ethan swallowed hard. You're safe now. I'll take you home. I'll fix this. Her head turned slightly, enough that he saw the shimmer of a tear mixing with rain. Her voice cracked. There's nothing left to fix. They took it. Everything. My voice. My light. My name. He took another step. They didn't take you. Not from me. Please, just come back. We can leave the city. Start over. She turned to face him fully now. And in her eyes those luminous violet orbs once so full of wonder there was only exhaustion. A depthless sorrow. I don't want to be someone you have to fix, Ethan, she said. I don't want to be a shadow in your life. You're not, he said. You're the only thing that's made me feel human again. For a moment, just a moment, her lips trembled as if she might smile. I don't have anything left to love, she whispered. Then she stepped back. One step. Then another. Ethan lunged forward. No. But he was too late. She let herself fall. Her silver figure vanished into the gray torrent below. The sound of the rain swallowed the silence, leaving nothing but the echo of her final breath. Ethan collapsed at the edge, hands gripping cold concrete, eyes wide in disbelief. The street below was a blur, flashing lights distorted by tears. He took the stairs down like a madman, boots slamming against metal, barely feeling the pain. When he burst into the alley, she was there still, crumpled, delicate. Like a fallen star crushed by the weight of a cruel sky. He dropped to his knees beside her. His hands shook as he gathered her into his arms, cradling her against his chest. Her body was limp. Her eyes were closed. The rain continued to fall. He rocked slowly, muttering her name over and over as if saying it could call her back. "Ariya, please. Ariya." But the stars in her eyes had gone out. Around them, the city moved on, indifferent. Neon signs blinked. Drones flew overhead. Somewhere, Ravik Morello likely poured another drink, smiling at the idea that he had broken another soul. Ethan sat there in the storm, soaked in grief and silence. And in that moment, something inside him changed. Not just the rage. Not just the pain. Something deeper. A vow. She would not be forgotten. And he would not stop until the last man who touched her was buried in the ashes of everything he built. Ethan looked up into the rain. And for the first time in years, he welcomed the storm. The city never truly slept, but beneath its neon poles and the thrum of automated traffic, there were corners where silence still lingered. Ethan crosswalked through one of them, now an abandoned maintenance shaft buried deep beneath the transit lines. Rust dripped from the pipes like blood. The air was thick with decay. This was where he kept the past. At the end of the corridor was a door sealed with biometric locks and quantum tags, long since stripped from the official grid. He pressed his palm to the reader. A red line scanned up his forearm, paused on the embedded chip, and blinked green. The door groaned open. The chamber beyond was more vault than room. Steel walls reinforced with ceramic plating. Racks of weapons, silent and sleeping. And in the center, a black coffin-shaped pod surrounded by inert machinery. Ghost Protocol. He stepped forward, hand brushing over the surface of the pod. It hissed softly, recognizing its owner. The top unfolded, revealing a sleek combat suit matte black with deep red markings, lined with nanofiber musculature and adaptive plating. It wasn't just armor. It was a second skin, engineered to respond to thought, to emotion, to vengeance. Ethan sat down on a nearby bench. His hands trembled. He reached into his coat and withdrew a thin glass chip, his memory drive. He inserted it into the hollow emitter. Ariya appeared. Not the broken girl from the rooftop, but her before. Smiling, curious, looking at him as if he held the entire galaxy in his hands. Her voice filled the chamber, distorted slightly by the translation codec. "Thank you," she said, speaking her native tongue, soft and lilting. "For letting me feel like I existed. Like I was more than a thing. Thank you for making me feel alive." Ethan stared at her image, tears streaming down a face that hadn't known grief like this in years. She laughed once in a clip, brushing her fingers along his arm, eyes full of starlight. Then the recording ended. He rose. Wordlessly, he stepped into the suit. Panels closed around him, piece by piece, responding to his breath, sinking to his heartbeat. He slipped the helmet over his head last. The HUD flickered to life, glowing red. System online. Neural bond stable. Ghost protocol activated. The moment it connected, something changed in him. The suit didn't just enhance his strength, it amplified his resolve. The weight of loss became weaponized. He walked to the weapons rack. Twin plasma blades. A silencer-fused pulse pistol. Flash grenades. Stealth injectors. Smoke mines. All black. All custom. He holstered each item with precision, a soldier falling into a rhythm long dormant. Then he approached the far wall. A long screen illuminated with a single voice command. List them. Dozens of faces appeared. Revok Morello's lieutenants. Smugglers. Scientists. Hunters. Slavers. Each one complicit. Each one breathing. He stared at them one by one. Not for long. A red line slid across each face as the system locked their profiles. Targets, acquired. Engagement level, lethal. Ethan reached for a blade and slid it into his arm sheath. The hiss of metal echoed in the chamber. They won't escape, he whispered. Not one of them. His reflection in the polished steel wall barely looked human anymore, armor-clad, eyes glowing like a predator in the dark. But inside, he was still the man who had held her hand beneath the poison sky. Still the man who had failed to save her. And now, he was the man who would burn the world for her. He turned to the vault door. It hissed open with a final sigh. Outside, the city awaited. But now it was his hunting ground. The silver emblem. Ariya's symbol. Forged from a piece of her broken necklace. Ethan made it personal. And the city watched in silence. Cops didn't intervene. Not seriously. They were afraid. Afraid of who he was, what he'd become. Official statements called it a string of targeted assassinations by unknown cybercriminals. Off the record, they called him something else. The Wraith with a broken heart. In less than 2 weeks, half of Revok's outer circle was gone. The turning point came in a warehouse raid in Sector 13. Ethan cornered a logistics chief named Graal, one of the few who hadn't fled underground. He dragged him into a loading bay, cuffed him upside down from a crane, and began to question him not with threats, but with silence. With a blade. Graal broke faster than expected. She wasn't just some alien, man. She was royalty. You don't get it. She wasn't even supposed to be touched. Ethan's eyes burned through the visor. Then why did Revok want her? Graal shivered. Because of what she carried. Not in her hands, in her blood. The genetics. She was engineered. Her kind were guardians. Their DNA is coded with ancient tech, locked keys to star forges, relics, stuff we don't even understand. Ethan said nothing. But his grip on the blade tightened. Revok wanted to own that power. He thought he could breed it. Sell it. But she resisted. Fought back. So he broke her. He thought he'd broken her. A long pause. The sound of rain tapping against metal outside. Then the soft click of Ethan's helmet retracting. His voice came low, controlled. She died thinking she was worthless. That there was nothing left in her to love. Graal nodded slowly, ashamed, trembling. You're wrong, Ethan said. He stepped back. Cut the cable. Graal dropped. When the body was found the next morning, he had bled out, but not before carving into the wall behind him, with his own blood, the mark. The silver crescent intersected by the star. And beneath it, written in trembling strokes. Forgive me. News spread like fire. Revok's men went to ground. The clubs emptied. The black market dimmed. A shadow had come to the city, and it carried the scent of death and regret. But Ethan wasn't done. He still had names. Still had fire. And Revik Morello's name sat at the center of it all, waiting. Soon, the fortress moved on silent engines, gliding through the clouds above the dead industrial zones like a black leviathan. Revik Morello's headquarters, called by locals the Spire, was not a building, but a living weapon, part airborne research hub, part prison, part throne. Ethan Cross stood beneath it now, cloaked in the acid rain, watching it descend slowly into its docking tower. Tonight, it wouldn't rise again. He breached the outer perimeter through a forgotten maintenance tunnel connected to the city's pre-collapse infrastructure. The path was narrow, wet, and laced with defense systems long dormant to common scans, but not to him. The Ghost Protocol interface mapped every sensor, every tripwire, every thermal mine. He moved like mist. Once inside, Ethan passed through the underbelly of the Spire, where steel met flesh, where concrete corridors twisted into surgical labs. Cells lined the walls. Inside them, beings not of this world whimpered behind glass, some too mutilated to speak, others with glowing eyes filled with fear. He disabled the locks one by one. Some creatures fled in silence. Others stared at him, unsure. And one, a small girl with skin like moonlight and hair braided in silver rings, ran to him without hesitation. She spoke in Ariya's language. "Don't leave us," she whispered. Ethan knelt. "You knew Ariya?" The girl nodded, tears building. "She sang to us when the pain was bad. She promised someone kind would come." He closed his eyes, fists clenching. That someone had come too late. Not again. He gave her a locator beacon and told her how to reach the extraction zone. "Go. Take anyone who will follow." Then he stood, and headed upward. Each level he climbed, the resistance grew. Armed guards. Genetic abominations. Turrets with reactive AI. But Ethan moved through them with surgical precision, no hesitation, no mercy. The deeper he went, the more he saw. Revik hadn't just captured alien life. He had twisted it. Crossbreeds of human and otherworldly DNA snarled from vats, limbs growing from tanks, minds wired to neural test rigs. Technology not of Earth, ancient, shimmering with bioluminescence, was fused with crude Terran weaponry. And then came the final door. Massive, curved like a rib cage. It opened with a hiss. Inside was a throne made of bone and circuitry. And sitting atop it, Revik Morello. He was no longer the man Ethan remembered. His body had been altered, stretched, reinforced. One arm was now a claw of coiled metal tendrils. His torso bulged with synthetic muscle, and his spine glowed through his skin like a living conduit. His left eye was gone, replaced by a rotating lens that adjusted with a click. He rose slowly, mockingly. "I wondered how many more you'd kill before you came to me." Ethan said nothing. He didn't need to. Revik laughed. "You think this is revenge? That she meant something to you? She was a key, Cross. A vessel. Her people encoded ancient technologies into their bloodline. Star forges, artifact control, genetic maps to forgotten empires. And now I carry what she refused to share." He opened his chest plate. Inside pulsed a vial glowing faint violet. Her blood. Ethan's breath caught. His HUD screamed with alarms: biocontamination, radiation spikes, weapon lock-ons. None of it mattered. He launched forward. The room erupted in chaos. Revok met him with brutal speed, inhuman now, powered by alien reflexes. His claw ripped through air, tearing chunks of wall. Ethan rolled beneath it, driving a plasma blade into Revok's side. Sparks and Itcher burst out, but the monster didn't stop. They fought across the lab, slamming through equipment, glass shattering, fire catching in the walls. Ethan's armor cracked. Blood seeped from under his helmet. Revok took damage and laughed through it. But Ethan didn't need to overpower him. He needed to outlast him. With a surge of effort, Ethan activated the suit's overdrive. The nanofibers lit up, accelerating his strikes, enhancing his senses. His blades danced. He severed Revok's left arm at the elbow, then sliced through the spinal interface. Revok screamed, not in pain, but in outrage. "You can't stop this," he bellowed. "This is evolution." Ethan pressed a charge into the open cavity of Revok's chest. "No," he said. "This is justice." He dove away just as the explosion triggered. The blast shook the tower's core. Fire spilled from the throne room, devouring machinery, consoles, DNA vaults. Ethan limped away, armor sparking, dragging a wounded leg. The little girl and a group of prisoners waited at the extraction zone. She ran to him. "You came back." He nodded, breath shallow. "Let's get out of here." Behind them, the empire of Revok Morello burned. A twisted kingdom collapsing under the weight of every sin it ever committed. And in the smoke, the silver mark of Ariya still shimmered on the walls she once sang within. The lab shook with firelight, sparks raining down from ruptured conduits as smoke billowed through the halls. Revok Morello lay broken against the wreckage of his throne, one arm severed, his mechanical systems failing, sparks spitting from the implants that once made him invincible. Ethan Cross stood above him, silent, a single vial in his hand glowing faint violet. Not a weapon. A reckoning. "This," Ethan said quietly, "is what you forced into her. What you used to bend her to your will." Revok's lips peeled back into a snarl, teeth stained with his own blood. "You think you've won? You don't even know what she was." Ethan didn't answer. He knelt beside the dying monster and inserted the vial into one of the ports on Revok's neck plate. The fluid hissed as it entered his bloodstream. The reaction was immediate. Revok's body convulsed, veins glowing bright as the alien compound reacted violently with his corrupted genetics. His scream tore through the burning chamber, inhuman and echoing. Ethan reached into his armor and activated a hollow emitter. Ariya appeared. Smiling. Alive. Her hair floating like starlight in zero gravity. She laughed a soft, musical sound and looked directly into the projection's lens as if she could still see. "I never hated you," she said in her native tongue, the translator gently overlapping her words. "I pitied you?" Revok's scream faded. His eyes widened as the light from the hologram reflected in them. Then the glow in his veins dimmed. His heart stopped. And just like that, the last breath of his empire vanished into smoke. Ethan stood and looked around at the destruction, data shards melting, genetic tanks shattered, fire eating away what remained of Ravik's twisted ambition. He limped toward the master console. The suit's neural link interfaced instantly. Code scrolled. Files decrypted. Names. Transactions. Locations. Decades of black market trafficking, weaponization of alien species, planetary violations. All of it. He activated the transmitter. A pulse shot upward, breaking through the atmosphere, bouncing off relay satellites, reaching beyond Earth. The message was short. Brutal. This is Ethan Cross. I carry proof of crimes committed by Ravik Morello and his syndicate against sentient species across the Orion Verge. Data attached. Justice begins now. He sent it to every known intergalactic authority. And then to the galactic news streams. Let them try to bury it. Let them try to ignore it. They wouldn't. By the time the last flame died out in the spire, Ethan was already gone. He returned to the rooftop where it had all ended. The rain had stopped. The clouds had thinned, revealing stars peeking through the ash-filled sky. It was quiet. He walked to the edge, the exact place where she had stood. He placed something small on the rooftop, a smooth stone, engraved with a silver mark, a crescent and a star. Beneath it, the words, "She lived. And so I did." He knelt, head bowed. A whisper of wind stirred behind him. "She believed someone would come," said a soft voice. He turned. The girl from the lab, her silver hair now unbraided, eyes wide, and still innocent, stood nearby. She held the locator beacon he'd given her, the light now dim. "My name is Ariya," she said. "She was my sister." Ethan felt something deep within him twist, not pain, not regret, but something closer to reverence. "She sang to us when they hurt us," Ariya continued. "I remember her voice. It was the only thing that made the dark feel warm." He wiped a hand across his face. "She sang to me too." Ariya stepped beside him, looking up at the stars. "Will they come for you now?" she asked. He nodded. "Maybe. I hope they do." She smiled. "Then I'll stay with you." He chuckled softly. "You don't have to." "I know," she said. "But I want to." Ethan looked at the stone one last time. The mark shimmered as starlight reflected off it. The storm was over. But justice, it was just beginning. And somewhere, among the stars, the last echo of Ariya's voice whispered through the void. "You made me feel alive." And now, Ethan Cross would make the universe remember why she died. Not with silence, but with fire.